This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to DRTSPR show. This is Dr. Tangella Shivaprasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR. Namaste, Adab, hello, and a warm welcome to my guru, Professor K. Purushottam Reddy Garu, Gurukulilu, BV Subbarao Garu, and this is being beamed live on the occasion of World Water Day. How important water is, I need not tell them. Both the guests will relate everything to us. 90% of our body is with water. The entire universe is filled with more water. But potable drinking, the humans usable or mammals usable water is very essential and very important. And for that reason, this show on the World Water Day is very important. CfS and DRTSPR channels are co-hosting. Subbarao, kindly go ahead, and it is connecting the continents. Sir, please.
Unmute, unmute.
Yeah. There is some noise disturbance. Please check Dr. Shuprasad Garu. And now I invite Shiva Satya, the young man, young water warrior who did his study, master's in urban planning from IIT Kanpur, one of the you know centers of excellence in education, technical educations in the country. He did his master thesis on the present critical issue of urban flooding. So I invite Mr. GSS Shiv Kumar to make his presentation. Thank you, Satya. And please unmute your mic. Unmute your mic, Satya.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thanks for inviting me for this event accelerating the change on the eve of the World Water Day. I would like to thank Subbarao sir for this opportunity for me regarding the. I will just give a brief about me. My name is Satya, and I have done my master's in city planning from IIT Kharagpur, and prior to that, I have done my bachelor's in architecture.
Satya,
Sir,
whenever I raise a finger, please, for our guests and all, please narrate bit slow. ఓకే
okay,
జల్దీ
sir.
జల్దీ స్లోగా మాట్లాడితే మన గెస్ట్లకు కూడా కొంచెం అర్థం కావడానికి ఈజీ అవుతుంది. ఇట్ బికమ్స్ ఈజీ ఫర్ అవర్ గెస్ట్ అండ్ అదర్స్ ఆల్సో వెన్ వీ రిలీజ్ ఇట్ ఇన్ ద యూట్యూబ్ ప్లీజ్. ఓకే,
Okay, sir.
రైట్.
Should I start from the beginning, sir? Sir, you are on mute.
కంటిన్యూ,
Okay, sir.
యూ కెన్ కంటిన్యూ
Yeah.
సత్య.
Okay, sir. As Subbarao sir informed, I have done my thesis on urban floods. I took a case of Hyderabad. Primarily, but today I want to speak about the planner's perspective on water resources. When we generally, as a city planner, when we generally think of designing a master plan for a city, we primarily consider this as a the water comes in the three different names. The primary one would be the our drinking water, which will be the potable water, and the second one will be the our sewage water, which is the used water that is discharged from our household, and the third one will be the storm water. So here, what happens? We primarily uh, consider these three as a simple waters which are run in the conduits. But the major differences between these three things is while the drinking water and the sewage water are flows within our design limits. Means if we can limit the starting point and the outlet point, we know clearly where is the inlet and where is the outlet. But when it comes to the stormwater, it is difficult to identify the inlet point because it's whole open area and the outlet points can be studied basis upon the topography sources. But when it and also as per the limits easy of the administration bodies to any kind of work infrastructure developments to be done on this basis, they limit themselves to the boundaries of the urban local body. So are it different boundaries, whether it may be regional boundaries or district boundaries or anything. But it is okay when we are dealing with the drinking water and the sewage water. But when it comes to the storm water, still there are limitations for these administration bodies, because they can't work out of their limits. So usually they also work in these terms in kinds of the administration boundaries, which is a bit not possible, because the stormwater doesn't follows our administration limits. It works as per the watersheds or basins that where it simply follows the gravity. So another issues when it comes to working, means when it comes to designing or something, is the land ownership. Because even if we want to create a stormwater line, a channel also, because of the rapid urbanization that is happening the worldwide, especially in the India, in the five metropolitan cities, it is highly difficult for the administration bodies to land acquisition even for a small portion of the land. When it comes to the stormwater, we require huge parcels of land, whether to temporarily store the water also, it is highly difficult for them to acquire. And when it is easily possible by just giving us importance toward the existing natural based systems, our what surface water bodies, whether it may be lakes or rivers, and the existing water stormwater network that uh, connecting all these lakes based on their topography, and which would be much easier. But there the regular maintenance, because of this rapid urbanization, the rate at which the water consumed and the water is getting discharged into these water bodies or surface water bodies, and the rate at which they are being taken out, whether it may be groundwater or the water taken from these sources for the drinking purpose, is completely different. We can't, while we are speaking about the sustainable development goals of making a sustainable cities and communities, it is highly difficult whether even to supply the water, meet the water requirements of the city, and also to treat the water that is used by the population living within these cities. But by simply managing, making use of these water bodies and these channels, we can uh, deal with both the climate change adaptation, sustainability, and also mitigation. In terms of the adaptation and the sustainability, we can use different source of water, including some design parameters in individual households or also community levels, such like the rainwater harvesting system, which they like there might be n number of very large number of the small storage units at each and every household, which reduces the runoff volume that is entering into the city level infrastructure. So the chances of failure becomes less. And also when these households make use of the stormwater, it reduces the water demand in turn for the ulbs that has to provide. So both the demand and the uh, supply, the supply demand of drinking water is reduced, and the supply of runoff is also reduced, which helps the ulb in both the ways. Is policies which promotes these kind of things must be made in order to strictly implement these rules. And also it when we make these and also this helps in, as I mentioned, disaster resilience infrastructure also. We, because the inputs investments are made by the individual household owner, so there won't be much more investments from the administration side, so it would be easy and gives the more beautiful results. And also while using these rainwater harvesting, we can also, there is a additional to it, we can also make the groundwater recharge pits, which also increases the groundwater table, which is a serious issues in all these urban areas. And also in terms of the mitigation, how this helps is uh, this helps in terms of the mitigation. We need many kinds of desiltings of the surface water bodies, reducing the discharge of the non-treated wastewater into these open surface water bodies, because that is in return polluting the environment, which is the flora and fauna is disturbing. It is increasing so much of water contamination and also polluting, whether it may be industrial waste, even the households waste. major missing of particularly a separate stormwater drainage network is missing in many ULBs because of complete a new network. Mostly they are combining it with the sewage. So all these sewage is entering into these water bodies. It is causing desilting also, which in turn reducing the holding capacities of these lakes. So even for a small amount of the rainfall also we are facing urban floods because of one of these major reason. And the other thing is that the big, rapid urbanization and illegal constructions, unplanned constructions also over these stormwater networks and in this full tank levels of these water bodies, also affecting the environment, these disasters, increasing the frequency of these disasters. So how to mitigate these? A primary thing is, at first we need a monitoring system in if we
Mm,
want to make any kind of preparedness, because when
okay.
as
Yeah.
uh, as
Anyway,
it would be better if
Yes,
we receive
dear Satya,
the
uh,
no.
it's a very good, statements you have given, understanding, and we will continue
Mm,
the debate. I have some questions for you, which will also help, particularly from the friends from Africa. I
Agbonilisi.
welcome Olabisi. Can you hear me,
Yes,
Olabisi?
please. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks.
Mm,
You could make it.
yes.
And
No.
my youngster
Yeah.
who
I
did
can
his
hear you. Good afternoon. Okay, how are you?
fine, thank you. It's almost 5 years. So
Okay. It's
yeah,
around
I
to
will.
2 a.m.
I will just introduce a couple of my friends.
Okay.
When I'm introducing, please raise your hand. Uh, Mr. Satya, please unmute yourself. Satya. Satya, he did his masters in urban planning and particularly recharging the groundwater in the urban areas. Okay? Yeah. It's my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Olabisi and the other name AA. I just uh,
Alveo.
yeah,
Alveo.
yeah, Mrs. Alabusi
Yeah.
had a very good, innings, successful career, and she was the general manager for Ekiti Water Resources Department in Nigeria, and she started as the designer, engineer with the Ekiti Water Resources Department. She was involved in international projects and World Bank projects, particularly, and mostly on the urban water supply systems. I had the opportunity of meeting her in 2017 when went there for a drinking water project of the Ekiti state, and she was awarded the best, administrator and water manager in 2019. Hope I am correct. It was 2019. Olabisi, unmute your mic.
Correct. The World Bank awarded the project the best in Nigeria.
So, Olabisi, I just introduced, my senior friend with whom I am working with last 36 years, Professor Purushottam Reddy. Anna,
Yeah. Yeah.
she
This is me.
is an eminent academician and an environment policy maker, and we are working together for last 36 years in this. And Dr. Sharma, no. So I introduce Richard. Richard, unmute your mic. Richard, unmute your mic and raise your hand.
Yes, Prof. I'm
Yeah,
here.
he is Richard from
See,
Malawi. I had the
okay,
opportunity,
okay.
yeah, I had the opportunity of meeting him when he came to Hyderabad for a training. I was handling a session for him on climate and water. He works in the area of watershed. he has good experience working in World Bank, African Development Bank, and European investment projects in Malawi. And Olabisi, the former general manager of Ekiti Water Resources Department, is a highly respected water manager in Nigeria country. And my another friend is Nageshwar Reddy. Please unmute your mic, Nageshwar. He is Mr. Nageshwar Reddy and a young man working in the area of climate and water with farmers. And Dr. Shiv Prasad? No. Okay, Sharmaji? Okay. As you requested, Mrs. Olabisi, I understand you are a busy person and, chasing the president of Nigeria all the time. So, so I request you to make your presentation. Please, welcome to Olabisi. Unmute your mic, madam.
Okay. Can I allow me to share the screen? Can I share my screen? Prof? Can I share my screen?
Subbarao sir, you are on mute.
Okay. Yeah, let's share the screen now.
Shiv Prasad?
I want to share the screen.
Yeah, one second. I'm just asking my technician to connect that. Shiv Prasad?
Okay. Okay. Can
Dr.
I send to your WhatsApp the slides? So you share the screen from there while I speak to the slides.
Okay, what I will do is, you can share the slides. I'm sending you the
Okay.
WhatsApp number. I'm sending the
Okay.
WhatsApp number. You can share your slides to this WhatsApp number,
Okay.
and
Come
you
in.
can start. Speaking. Okay, I think you have the number on your WhatsApp. Dr.
Okay.
Shiv Prasad.
Okay.
Dr. Shiv Prasad.
It is in the. Okay. Okay. Wait, mm, okay. Plus 9194. Surely she 04.
Hello.
Save. Okay.
లే నాకు ఆమె సీనియర్ డైరెక్టర్ వచ్చింది నైజీరియా
Okay. So
స్లైడ్స్ మీకు పంపిస్తున్నది ప్లీజ్ మీరు వచ్చేసేయండి తర్వాత చూసుకుందాం
Okay. So, no.
Dr. Shiv-Prasad, you check, I was
Yeah.
trying to introduce Olabisi to you. She is sending her slides, or you can make her the, host.
I'll make her the presenter
Mrs.
so that she can.
Mrs. Olabisi,
Yes. Yes, please.
My partner, technical man, is here. He will make
Okay.
you the presenter and share the screen. Is it okay with you?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
I've already made you the presenter, madam. You can share the screen.
Okay.
Wonderful.
So where is it? Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Able to watch your screen? Yes, wonderful.
Yes.
You can
Yeah, we can see the
enlarge,
screen.
you can
Okay.
enlarge it.
Oh, thank
Okay.
you. Okay. Go to the minimize.
Maximize.
So we are okay.
Now maximize.
Okay, we have done that. We have done that.
Yeah. Go ahead, madam. Now it's clear.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, the convener and my colleagues. Thank you, the convener and my colleagues. As I said, Engineer Mrs. Olabisi Ayola Agbeyo. Today is the World Water Day has been celebrated world round with the theme accelerating the change. So I want to seek your indulgence to continue on this. I defined change as making something different from what it used to be. Change is making something different from what it used to be. It can be positive, it can be negative. I also define accelerate as something to fast tracking something, hastening, improving, or quickening things. That's what I define both change and accelerate to be. And I said there are possible types of changes. We have so many, but I just decided to pick very few of them because of the time allotted to me. I have operational change in terms of the activities of the utility. There is a traditional way that the utility maybe performs its operational functions, but there is bound to be change. There is bound to be the operators accelerating whatever change that is being adopted to get a very good result. We also have attitudinal change on the part of the staff. In fact, my prof, the convener, can confirm that under the third national urban water sector reform project that was implemented in Nigeria, Ekiti State was part of the implementing state. And we got an award for good job done. And part of what we did then was to train up the staffs for them to have attitudinal change. We exposed some of them to international training and some to local training so that they have a new idea and change of attitude towards doing their job. We also need behavioral change on the part of the customers. Customers are used to uh, a kind of, for example, a kind of behavior that they don't care less when they see leaks. They don't care less when there's wastage in their home. They care less about excessive. They use water in excess. Whereas in some other countries, not peculiar to Ekiti, though the formation in Ekiti is sedimentary formation, in some areas the surface water the pipelines were extended and reticulation was done there. In some areas, the borehole cannot even strive. So, and you have some wasting water somewhere. So, we also need to talk about the behavioral change for the customers. And then when you now say accelerated change, what does this mean? What does it entail? We have other types of changes, like changes in terms of partnership and PPP arrangements, intersectional uh, arrangements, and the rest. We have so many changes, but I just said let me pick the salient ones that may be useful for a particular utility. Accelerated change in terms of the political will. In this case, why I mention political will is that our setting in Nigeria. If you don't have political support or backing or will from the government or the government of the day, you are bound to fail in any project, in anything you embark upon. You really need their buying so that they will give you the financial backing and then also support you when it comes to engaging customers. You know, politicians, there's a way they go around when they are campaigning. You can leverage on such platform to talk to send them to their favorites in different communities and they will listen to you. So we need accelerated change so that when the politicians, or let me say the government of the day, when you have the commissioners, the governor backing you, saying go for, then there is bound to be success in whatever you are doing. Also need accelerated change in proper documentation. What I found out when I was a general manager is that we were able to put some things in place because we discover we were not having the data bank. We were not doing enough data gathering. If what we were doing before the advent of that project, it was just scattered there. But we succeeded in putting a unit together, a unit that is gather a data unit. We succeeded in putting a data unit in place where they have a system where they store all data. So whatever you need, you can go to them and get the data and work on it. So we need accelerated change in proper documentation, data gathering, and even storage for the present use and for the future. Assessment and evaluation. This can be in hard copy or soft copy and soft copy. In case the system crashes, we should still have something we can leverage on to do other studies. I also put in place accelerated change in customer care, our relationship customer centric and our relationship with our customers. If there is no accelerated change, it might be difficult to actually move from the present position we are to the next stage, the next time. What can bring about change? I also titled it What Can Bring About Change. One thing is that in any organization, it's also important for you to do organizational diagnosis to assess the present status of that utility. When you know the present status of that utility, you do the SWOT analysis, which is strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And then from there, we can have several questions coming up. I highlighted some of the several questions that we automatically come up when you do such diagnosis. Like when last was such study done on the utility? After the study had been done, was there any noticeable change by the time the recommendations were being implemented? What was the level of change? Is it noticeable? Is it very minute? Is there no change at all? So that before you even do anything on accelerating change, is there any change already? If there's no change, what can you even do to bring about any change and then accelerate it? So what are the challenges? And if after initial study there were no changes, then there must be reasons for those changes not coming up. So I looked at one. We also want to look at what are the challenges that suppress the expected change at the initial study. What were the challenges? And then from the SWOT analysis, one will be able to see the strength, opportunity. Then we can write to foster the change. We can write on both the strength of that utility and the opportunities. That was what we tried in our system and it worked. The above question will trigger solutions that will bring about the necessary and expected changes. What can bring about change? That's the second slide, still on what can bring about change. When generating implementable strategic plan, not strategic plan that we just put on the shelf, but strategic plan that is implementable, that there are recommendations and implementation documents as regarding this. I think we also need it for us to have a good result. When you have uh, strategic plan in place, you have corporate strategic plan, you have for the reform we did, we have core ideology, corporate objective, a lot of it entails, the document entails a lot. It's very detailed. So when you have that and with a good policy in place and master plan already in place, the three documents, it will be able to look at what are the things that can be done to accelerate expected change. Then, as I said earlier, you need strong political will and support. In Nigeria, anything you are doing and there's no backing of the government or the government of the day. Let me use that word. The government of the day. If there is no political backing or support or commitment to allow the system to run effectively, then one might have issues along the way. But if the support is there, so that when you need the funding, when you need them to make noise, when you need them to to talk to their people, because you can do several jingles, this, you can engage stakeholders. But because when they were campaigning, they made some commitments too. They can go back to those communities and say, we campaign there and we promise you this. This MDA is bringing this to you as regards our promise. The development partner is joining them, and then you'll be applauded in those communities. So we actually need in Nigeria strong political will to get so many things done. Also, we also need to accelerate. We should not limit accelerating changes to the utility alone. As I mentioned, the customers too, or the populace of, yes, they also need continuous education, creating awareness, do a lot of sensitization, educating them about, like what we did when we were implementing our own project. We did a lot of, in fact, it was throughout the life of the project that we were doing stakeholder engagement. For every stage we brought them so in that they own the project. So our materials on site, they were saying, because the communities they were involved. And then whenever we were passing through any digging holes, maybe along, and there is a community member that wants to disturb or hinder, all others will team up and go and meet. No, we have all agreed, we sign with them. Oh. And so it made the work easy, and we were able to achieve. So we really need, we should not limit changes to only the utility. We also need to carry along the stakeholder, a lot of stakeholder engagement. And then in the water sector, we have phone numbers even after completing the project, that communities, people, public can, we have numbers that dedicated to the public. They can phone in, they can send messages if there are issues, if there are things they want, if there are things they are lacking, if there are things expected of us that we are not come up doing, and we'll be able to explain to them. So you need a lot of continuous education and sensitization. And the sensitization must also include efficient use of water. You know, when they know, even with metering we also control some, because once we use prepaid meter. So once we meter your premises and you waste the water, yes, you exhaust whatever change you have on your meter. That's all, you have to go and recharge. So all this, and then you train them and teach them how to be efficient in water usage. We also do uh, my convener can confirm that we also did something or metering and tariff. So the metering system must come with efficient monitoring system to avoid water theft. Because if it's just metering system that is there, that you don't have a system for check and balances to know that the volume for even each zone, what we did, we put nodal meters, then we also put domestic meters. So we also have bulk meter in place. So whatever volume we are sending out to a particular zone, we know how much they can consume. So if you have them not consuming such, there may be bypass somewhere, there may be theft somewhere, there may be a lot of things. So if you have the monitoring system in place, that will assist to do checks and balances. And then in conclusion, I want to say this, that from my own experience and from my travel here and there, I discovered in Colombia that the private water utility was somewhere, the government owned was somewhere. They were working pari passu. You go to anyone that you like, that the service is good. So there can be comparison. But in Nigeria, I'm thinking that if you make anything totally private suddenly, it might be, people have alternatives in Nigeria. They have wells, they have surface water, they return back to taking streams and river water. But if you, because it will become so expensive, because if it suddenly becomes a private company, and the cost of water, I mean the production cost shoots up, and the cost of selling water is high, people might go back to streams and rivers. But if you make it gradual, and we are increasing the tariff gradually at certain, maybe every 2 years or 5 years, and the utility is also making a good profit, then gradually the utility might gravitate to becoming a full-fledged profitable private companies. As I mentioned in my remarks or conclusion, this is supposed to be a gradual move that will take few years, and then we shall get there. But uh, this is my own presentation, but as I said, I only took very few of the expected change, or accelerating where we can accelerate changes. But don't worry, we have several other changes that can take place. Maybe one's relationship with a private, including private partnership, maybe accelerating change in terms of relationship between intersectorial, uh, intersectorial MDAs and all the rest. But I just decided to restrict myself because of time, to have just few slides so that others can also share their experience. Thank you.
You can withdraw the
Yeah,
sharing
that's what
so
I
that,
want to do now.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Shiv Prasad, you can withdraw and we can can we have few questions, madam?
Yes,
Yeah, I have a question actually. You
okay.
know, sometimes, the idea of accelerating the things, uh, it may create some kind of a pressure on the executive and also a pressure on the consumer. Your response, please.
That was why I said at the initial, I mentioned it in my presentation, that as you are accelerating the change in terms of uh, the utility performance or operations, you also need to engage. There should be accelerated change in terms of education of the communities and the customers, because if you don't get them engaged and gradually educating them, they will become another problem for you when you are also trying to accelerate your own change. This is why the two must go together, so that it will be easier for the success of what we are planning.
Yeah, sustaining the thing is there are two issues. What I see when I also came there is accessibility to the resource, water, and
Okay.
affordability to pay
Mm.
at different levels of the society. How do you see your experience in this? Accessibility to water to the poor, affordability to pay the price.
You see, when we went to Colombia, they graduated payments. Tariff was in graduation. For the rich people with high class, there is a tariff for them in government reserved areas. But in Nigeria, or let me say yes, in Nigeria as a whole, the challenge we have is that someone that is middle class will go and build his house amidst the rich people. Then you cannot single one person out amidst the whole populace there, that we will give you another tariff, while on the same street we give you this one different tariff. That's the challenge we have. But in Nigeria, there is also a way that we have standpoints for the poor, that you are at every 250 meters you have standpipe where about uh 5-10 people can be fetching at the same time. And in that community, what we usually put is that there is always a meter There's always a community leader that's in charge. There's always a woman that is made a treasurer. So that if people are having this, that one is a control price for the pro poor. So this is what we adopted in our own system. And when I went to Colombia, I saw that the pro poor too, some of them, even in their home, they could not afford pipeline to their house, so they use those to get water to their house. But even at that, the price they are being charged is reasonable. There is a particular limit, a particular level you get to, because before the utility will begin to bill you. Another thing is that there's also a way that the government also pays for the pro poor somehow. When you have some key issues, key projects, the government will also support you in financing, so that when they have the list of your pro poor people, the government can also pay a meritorium for you, considering those people you are feeding that cannot afford the payment. They will also support you in terms of input, in terms of extension, in terms of things that you need in the corporation. So that will compensate for those people the pro poor you are actually assisting.
Congratulations. I wish all the good luck to bring
Thank you.
a change, an amicable change, a sustainable change, and bring a sustainable water management systems in the African countries, particularly in Nigeria. And anybody else, please? Professor Purushottam Reddy, Sanjay Asthana, and Richard. You have any questions? Richard, unmute your mic and you can ask a question, please.
Yes, thank you for the wonderful presentation, Madam from Nigeria. I wanted to understand because in the first place, when she was doing the introduction, she mentioned that she has experience working in World Bank projects. And now,
Exactly.
when she was making the presentation, she presented in a direction that maybe she's also implementing other personal projects with other donors, with other people. Because I heard her well when she said, for us to strengthen proper use of water, we need to engage political leadership. The reason why I want to understand is that from my own understanding and experience with the World Bank projects, before you start implementing a project, you already have a rapport with the government. Otherwise, it's like when the project is being approved by IDA or IFC, it means the government has already made commitments on how they are going to handle all these other issues, whether environmental, social, and everything that is concerned. So I want to get it from her. Is it like from the presentation she was making? Is she presenting a direction that she's implementing personal projects that she has to, on her own, go and maybe engage political leaders for things to work? That's my question.
No, that's not how to do it. When we
Mm,
implemented the World Bank project, in
yes.
Nigeria,
Mm,
in Nigeria, democracy, for any government to be in power, it should be for a
mm,
period of 4 years. The project
yes.
life can extend more than 4 years. It
Uh-huh.
means another government is coming in,
Mm-hmm.
another government may take over. So the one
Mm-hmm.
that you engage at the inception of the project, at the
Mm,
conception and the implementing, midway,
yes.
another government comes in power. So when that
Mm-hmm.
government comes, there is also engagement with that government, so that
Mm-hmm.
the project can continue unhindered. That was what actually happened to us. There was a
Okay.
government that actually sourced the loan for us, that was
Mm-hmm.
in place. At the exit of that government, we were granted the loan. Oh no, after that
Okay.
government, the government was the
Yes.
one that put in. So by the time the tenure expired,
Mm-hmm.
and another
Yes.
government came on board, the project was
Mm,
approved. The one that came on
okay.
board did not know whatever the engagement we had with the initial one. Are you telling me?
I
Because it
see.
was from another party. So that's
Mm,
why I said we need continuous education. So it's
Engagement.
not
Yes.
me, yeah, it's engagement. It's not me per se. The bank had to
Mhm.
come, we had to go to
Yes.
them, explain again this, and then the first government that that started it gave an
Mm.
irreversible order to the federal government for
Yes.
direct deduction of the counterpart. That was part of the
Yes.
success story that we had. So the one
I
that was
see.
coming in could not stop. Even when he wanted to stop, he brought me in,
Mm.
and I advised that my advice to the state government is that let us continue. You will see the progress we
Mm.
make. And because of the promise,
Okay.
and the bank also, the representative, the TTL team came, and they also engaged and gave him briefing. Then he had rest of man and said we should continue. So
I
because
see.
of our situation in Nigeria, that when a government is in place, another one can come,
Mhm.
another one can come. You still need that continuous engagement, or else the project will not be successful. So run through 2, 3 government, and we were still able to achieve success on the project. I think is a good one.
I see. No, thank you so much for the wonderful explanation.
Yes, sir.
Now, shall I play Mr. Nageshwar Reddy's PPT? Sir, Subbarao garu మీరు unmute చేసుకోండి. You have to unmute Subbarao ji.
Purushottam Reddy, Professor.
నాగేశ్వర
Purushottam
రెడ్డి
Reddy
గారిది
గారు.
పురుషోత్తమ అన్న నాగేశ్వర రెడ్డి గారిది పీపీటీ ప్లే చేయాలనా? షల్ ఐ ప్లే నాగేశ్వర రెడ్డి గారి
No, no, no.
PPT?
Let us conclude this and then move to Nageshwar Reddy. Okay.
అచ్చా అచ్చా
Dr.
వన్
Sanjay
మినిట్.
Asthana, you have any questions?
Not right now because I just joined. Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Good morning,
So,
good evening. I
so,
will wait.
so I
Yeah.
thank Mrs. Olabisi for a wonderful presentation and sparing your time. Uh, and if possible, please stay back for some more time. Uh, we have a presentation from India and then from my friend from Malawi, Mr. Richard. So thank you so much, Mrs. Olabisi. Hello?
Please, I will expect thank you very much. I will expect the maybe recording of this. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
I lost somebody yesterday night. An in-law yesterday night, and I have to go for the place now. So I won't be able to stay on with you throughout the course
Okay.
of the interaction. But please, the recordings you have, please share with me after uh, the whole of today. Thank you very much.
Definitely we will share. And Professor Purushottam Reddy
Thank,
has
thank,
joined.
thank,
And
thank
anything you
you.
would like to say, Anna?
Okay, it's nice meeting you all. It's nice meeting you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if everything goes well, hello,
Okay,
Olabisi, can you hear me?
thank you.
Olabisi,
Thank. Okay.
can you hear me?
Yes, I
Okay.
can hear you now.
Yeah, yeah. If everything goes well, I may see you in the month of June.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
okay. That'll be fine.
Thank you so much.
That'll be
Bye.
fine.
Take care.
Thank
God
you.
bless you. God
Take
bless
care.
you.
Have
Thank
a
you.
nice day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was the project, Richard, where the drinking water problem, and she has almost 34 years of experience working with the government and projects. And as you know, the constraints and limitations of these international funding agencies also. And also the fluid political systems in third world countries, which also creates some kind of obstacles for the smooth implementation of these projects. Now I will get back to you, Satya. We need to discuss more on the urban flooding because
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. That's fine.
the two American guests, they also did some study on Hyderabad flooding. Okay, so they are joining, but one already joined, and I am waiting for the other gentleman, so that we will have a healthy, fruitful discussion. between you three people. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Now
No
I
issues.
invite, now I invite Mr. K.V. Nageshwar Reddy and request Dr. Shiv Prasad to, play the PPT on behalf of Nageshwar Reddy. Okay? Welcome to Nageshwar Reddy.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Good evening to all.
Yes, sir. I'm playing the PPT. Nageshwar
Yes,
Reddy
sir.
garu, మీ PPT I'm playing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it okay, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah, good
Yes.
evening to one and all, sir. Yeah, I want to discuss, I want to deliberate my topic again, climate change and water actually. Water is most precious element as well, that, but where we collect the water for our sustainability, sustainability, we must collect the water from rain only because it provides fresh water for everyone. For it may be humans, flora, fauna, and whatever it may be, will get water from there only. If you, after reaching it on the earth, actually the pollution levels are increasing. Why it is increasing? In several issues are going on. I don't want to touch that, but we can't eradicate water scarcity without providing solutions for climate change because climate change is locking the water availability in several parts of the world. Okay, next, sir. Sir, next one. Sir, next slide.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Auto. Is this the one?
Yes.
Yeah, next one, sir. Next one. Next slide.
Water
Yes,
plays
sir.
a vital role.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Water plays a vital role in improving livelihoods, controlling poverty, food security, that is in the form of food inflation or food prices, uh, good health to everyone, is in creating wealth, whether it is household or in the business or economy or government side also. Because governments are spending much more money for getting water from far distances to provide water for people. It is urban areas or rural areas because constructing a dam is costing more and more year by year. Governments are spending millions of money for constructing dams to provide water for people, but it is not available. It is not the compared to cost. The availability of water is very less because water costing is increasing. Simply, I am telling, water costing is increasing. Sustainability, water and land. I want to discuss about that because sustainability is lacked at water because community like farming community, farming laborers and cattle's, rural development, fishermen community, aqua production, agro industries, all are suffering with water scarcity and um, water costing. because they are maintaining cost is increasing year by year, but it is not compared to productivity. It is not reaching much profits. Industry, water trading and manufacturing, water trading industry, that is the companies which are using water for producing water, mineral water, or beverages, or cool drinks, whatever it may be, are also suffering a lot. And manufacturing industries, food or any other products, companies which are using this water also suffering a lot, sir. Hydropower industries, mostly hydropower industries are uh, shutting down, that is shutting down 3 months to 4 months every year because of water scarcity in the dams. Tourism also the biggest challenge for upcoming decades. In apart from that, construction industry also suffering to purchase the water for construct the houses, infrastructure, whatever it may be. Next one, sir. Water scarcity. Where we find the water first? Why it is not available that places? We find the water at rivers, reservoir or dams, ponds, and groundwater, pools or glaciers. It is why it is not available there. In rivers, actually, due to flash floods, water is moving fast. Actually, the what called runoff is increasing, and the water is from reaching one place to another place within quick time. And one more thing is poles. Glaciers are melting because of temperatures. Both parameters are linked with climate change only. Apart from that, no rains. There is a lot of drought situation, famine situation in some countries, and rising actually water scarcity year by year. And one more thing is silting and mud. Silting and mud means when flash floods are carrying too much of solid waste into that, and sewerages, whatever it may be, and they are putting into water bodies. That is silt and mud, and not allowing any percolation levels into the ground. That is the major problem for groundwater levels. Humid conditions, heat islands. Actually, when there is no groundwater levels are tempting the heat year by year, this is also one of the major issue. Apart from that, one more thing is the one more thing is most part of the world people are wasting a lot of time at water collecting zones. It may be 1 hour or 2 hour, up to 9 hours also. In South African region, uh, they are wasting a lot of time for to 4 to 5 hours for collecting water from far distances, that is 4 to 5 kilometers from their residential area. Also, they are unable to provide required quantity of the water for their cattle also. This is also one of the major problem with water scarcity. Next, sir. Sir, next, sir.
Yes, sir. Climate change, water scarcity.
Yes, sir. Climate change and water scarcity. What are the reasons? In the main areas, the rainfed areas suffering a lot because surface temperature is playing a vital role in rainfed area. Water scarcity is hitting strongly to rainfed zones. Water basins, because actually water basins are uh, main problem is water basins actually due to flash floods. The flash floods are carrying too much of water at a time, and they are unable to maintain in the dams systems actually, and they are releasing the water to downstreams, so that the downstream is suffering a lot. And irrigation activities, the season of the agriculture is compressing year by year, at least 3 to 4 months because the early summer. One more is wastewater, that is actually human discharges are straight away reaching to water bodies and polluting water bodies year by year. And the wastewater is, we are not treating wastewater. So it is the one of the major problem for all of us for producing uh, other activities. Groundwater. Groundwater levels are drastically coming down. There are so many reasons are there. One, apart from there, we are receiving the rains instead of, we are receiving floods instead of rains. That is the major reason. Pastoral activities. That is, every year we are the communities are gathering at one place and throwing too much of garbage into water bodies. This is one of the major problem. And other thing is we must learn something from this all these experiences, because first observe the ecosystems, hydrological systems. How many days we are receiving the rains? How many hours we are receiving the rains? Raining pattern. In a day also we are receiving just 1 hour to half an hour to 1 hour rain, and in a month also we are receiving just 1 or 2 days or 5 days rain. Other days are not, zero. Weather changes. Local weather also changes year by year. We must observe this from ecosystem and information systems. Every year, meteorological divisions are that statistical records. We must observe rainfall data, rainy days, temperature levels, how gases, that means how the air is moving. That means velocity of the air also. We must observe. Else, it is not possible to control the climate. How can we answer for next generation's scarcity? Water, whether it is water or food. So preparedness is most important for climate change solutions. Next, sir.
Yes, sir.
Never neglect climate change, because climate change is first of its kind subject on this planet Earth. Second one, entire planet is impacting with climate change, whether it is crust or atmosphere or ozone, whatever it may be. Every species is impacting with climate change, whether it is glaciers or hill stations, oceans, land area, wildlife, whatever it may be, everything. If you neglect it, actually every year, every term, actually sustainable development goals, millennium development goals, whatever it may be, the term is changing. Global warming, climate change, and upcoming some name they will tag it. But we are not connecting it. But one thing is, if you won't provide the climate change solution for coming decades, we can make, we can see Earth like Mars. Simply, I want to say that. Next, sir,
Yes, sir.
I am very thankful to my gurus who brought me into this field, Sri Professor Purushottam sir, Sri B.V. Subbarao garu, for bringing this set. Thank you, sir. Next, sir, special thanks to Dr. Shivaprasad Reddy garu, DPR channel, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me great opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful. Kind of you. But do subscribe and support. That will be very much. That will make
Thank
me
you, sir.
happy.
Thank you, sir. Definitely.
Wonderful, wonderful presentation. Yes, sir. Bro.
Yes. Congrats, Nageshwar Reddy garu, that
Thank
you
you very
could
much.
bring out the basic issues of climate change and water. And we'll come to you with a question that what should be done immediately? That is the main theme of this year. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Accelerating. That is what Mrs. Olabisi was also talking. We will put this during the panel discussions or open house discussion. Now, my friend who is eagerly waiting for quite some time, Richard from Malawi. Richard, I welcome you, and with your great experience, particularly in promoting implementing the community-centered projects. Okay, and you have seen the limitations and you have seen everything. And what is the need of our to accelerate? Welcome, Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Dr. Suba, and everyone for this opportunity to be part of this platform. I don't take it for granted. Apologies for the first time we had this meeting, it didn't go well. We didn't manage to do what we were supposed to do. But today it's another great opportunity. Happy World Water Day to everyone. Basically, as I said earlier, as Dr. Suba has put it, to say I'm mostly have vast experience working in community-based projects under World Bank, of course, African Development Bank, here and there with roads construction activities, including the European Investment Bank. But mostly I'm going to talk about the projects that I've been doing with the World Bank, because that's what I have experienced most on since around somewhere around in 2016, 2017. Yeah. So I think for my side, the idea of accelerating change simply means investing the bottom up approach, that is from engaging the communities, doing the smaller things at a bigger with a bigger what doing the smaller things but at a bigger scale, because when you begin to talk about the community, then it means some of the intervention that we've been doing, maybe you are doing them at a small scale, and because we saw some changes, but we need to accelerate that change, then it means we must be able to do those smaller things, but at a bigger scale, where we are able to meet a lot of communities, but at the same time implement the projects at a pace where the projects to be meaningful. I'll articulate in this meeting that during one of the meetings, normally when we are implementing a World Bank project, there are times where you do what they call World Bank mission. They come and supervise what is going on, every project that you're implementing. And then during those meetings, once you do the project supervision, you come back on the table and begin to discuss the action plans, what can be done best. So I remember in one of the meetings, one of the things that we observed is that sometimes when governments get loans from World Bank or African Development Bank, the biggest challenge is sometimes that we take money and put it in a lot of sectors. That is small amount of money, but we put it in a lot of sectors where we do smaller projects. At the end of the day, the real impact that you want to experience is not there, because it was money was there, but it was widely spread into too many activities that each and every activity was done at a smaller pace, or at a smaller extent, at a smaller degree. So one of the things that we need to do in accelerating this change in terms of balancing between climate and water is that every project that we're implementing needs to follow what I call deepening impact approach, where when you have money for projects, you don't just spread it anyhow, but you focus on a particular catchment area where you can do different activities at the same time. For instance, you can have a project in agriculture, you are doing climate smart irrigation, you are doing you are rearing animals there, you are doing all these dam safety management issues, you are working on maybe livelihood restoration activities in a particular catchment area. Instead of taking a water project, maybe in putting it in Hyderabad, and then you take another smaller project, you go and put it in Gujarat, then you take another smaller project, the same money, you go and put it somewhere else very far. Instead of just focusing on a smaller particular area and do a bigger activities that are going to bring a real impact. So I think that's one of the recommendations in this day as we are celebrating Water Day, and of course balancing between climate and this water problem, because we cannot deny the fact that at this stage, these problems that come with climate change have come to stay. We have either a problem of too much water that we are talking about floods, or we have a problem of no water at all. We're talking about drought. Recently, here in Malawi, we've been experiencing cyclones, things that we have never seen before. Me growing up, I have never seen a cyclone before. We were just reading it in books. But I remember from 2019, we had Cyclone Anna, and barely after 2 years in 2021, we had the Cyclone Idai. We had Cyclone Idai in 2019, which affected Malawi and Mozambique and some parts of Zimbabwe. And then 2 years later, we saw another cyclone in the name of Cyclone Anna and Cyclone Gombe. And this happened just last year in around, it should be in 2022, around February or something, some February, March. And again, this year, if you're following the news, we are also in the middle of another cyclone right now. As I'm talking to you, we have about 300 deaths. Lives have been lost. A lot of infrastructure has been destroyed, but of course, mostly in the lower parts of our country, in the southern region. So what is happening now is that governments have to be really prepared. That's another point I want to make when it comes to us accelerating this change. Governments have to prepare, and they have to accept that climate change problems have come to stay, and therefore we have to put in serious measures in climate adaptation and mitigation strategies. Now, I'll come to that. Because I remember in one of our discussions with Dr. Subalao when we came to Hyderabad, we had this issue of some government quarters not accepting that this climate change is real. We have other schools of thought that are in for understanding that climate change is real. But for me and all of us who are here, we accept that climate change is real, and therefore governments have to get prepared. Governments have to do a lot of capacity building in all the sectors that involve all these kind of management of projects, and maybe the issue of management, disaster management affairs, things like departments like those ones. Meteorological services, they have to be strengthened. I'll come to that. In terms of maybe meteorology, then we have to strengthen all these area warning systems. When we know there's a flood is coming, when you know a cyclone is coming, all these things, they have to be strengthened. People have to get messages. We have to do a lot of awareness and sensitization, prepare the people that if something is happening, this is what we must do. I'll give you an example. I've had an opportunity to read a number of reports on disaster risk management, and at the same time on water and of course environment from World Bank. Between 2021 and 2022, there were what we call 10 disastrous, 10 most dangerous disasters that happened in human history in different countries. And one of them was the issue of floods and cyclones. And of course, we cannot deny the fact that Haiti was also affected greatly. And up to now, according to that report, it's called the Interconnected Disaster Risk Management Report from World Bank, 2021-2022. It has been mentioned that even up to now, when it comes to the issue of recovery, some countries like Haiti, even their palace has not been built yet. Why? Because of lack of funds and all these the ongoing wars, and these countries which are called the fragile and conflict zones like Haiti. That's another point I wanted to make, to say governments have to accept. We have to be really ready, and of course put serious resilience. Not resilience that appears on paper, because sometimes countries have a very good way of putting things on paper, producing a lot of policies, developing a lot of policies, but when it comes to implementation, we are not doing a lot. So that's one of the parts that we really need to be serious on. Policies are there, but what do we do with the policies? Let's implement them at a bigger scale and with speed, engaging all the people who are supposed to be engaged in the implementation plans. That's another one. Secondly, I'll come to the agricultural part, because for most of the parts in Southern Africa, because I come from Southern Africa, mostly climate change and water issues are coming in because of agricultural activities. So in this case, if you want really to accelerate this change from a community level, then it means all these climate smart irrigation system approaches have to be really be made available for the people to use in the communities. For instance, we can talk about the issue of pricing. Sometimes we want to use a technology, we want to advocate for a technology, but yet people in the communities don't have enough finance, they don't have enough money to purchase this kind of materials. So what do? Let's make these things in bulk and of course put them at a good price and advocate so that people can buy in the villages and use them greatly. Recently, I've had an opportunity to implement with a non-profit organization some of these activities to do with climate smart irrigation. We have some irrigation kits here in Malawi. Of course, they are purchased in China, but these ones they go up to $20. It's just a small one that can be maybe installed in a garden, in a smaller piece of land. So it means these smaller things have to be done at a larger scale in the communities by financing them properly. Climate change and water issues have to be seriously financed, the financing part. And when the finances have come, they have to be channeled properly in the right direction where they're supposed to be used in a proper way. Because another problem that may come in is the issue of corruption. Sometimes funds come, but the way government officers and other people who are engaged are really using these funds, then we are having a lot of problems. There's a lot of corruption, a lot of the engagement of contractors under some dubious means to give them a project, and then you know that by the time you are doing that, they have to give money to a lot of people for their contract to be approved, and before you know it, the money that was supposed to go to the community is no longer the same amount because a lot has been used in funding useless processes in the government offices. That's another one. So climate smart agriculture is one of the better ways of conserving water. Another thing is the idea of construction of water harvesting structures. Recently, one of the projects that I've been part of, they are doing what we call excavated tanks. These big dams where people can be using that dam for irrigation. Then we can trap rainwater, something like that. So these changes, they really need to be done at a larger scale in the communities, almost everywhere where you know there's a water problem because of this climate change issue. These dams have to be built. So here, that's one of the things that we're implementing. The other issue is the efficient use of water. She mentioned the woman from Nigeria. She mentioned something to do with water efficiency in usage. We can talk about reuse of water. In the area of where we are doing infrastructure development, instead of maybe getting water from the rivers, which is used by a lot of people, you can actually, sorry, instead of getting water from water taps for construction, then you can get water from the rivers where water is just flowing anyhow. You get that water and use it for construction instead of using water from the taps and towns. The other issue I wanted to put across is the issue of catchment conservation. For us to accept this change in areas where we know we have low water running, we have maybe river borders, the lakes, maybe the oceans and everything. We really need to strengthen catchment conservation strategies, put a lot of trees around, trees that conserve water. I'll give you an example. I watched a video on Bangladesh. It's called Building a Resilient Bangladesh. This video talks about how Bangladesh government used World Bank money to construct a flood processing structure, a lot of kilometers, a concrete one. Why? Because most of the times they're experiencing floods. So they built this, the flood protection structure, the dike, they call it the dike. And they put a lot of trees all around, a lot of trees surrounding all this structure because they want that when water is coming, instead of water maybe crossing the dike, sometimes the water can be trapped in these trees through seepage and all that. So we really need to strengthen this. On top of that, we can talk about this. Let me put it this way. Strengthen wetland conservation strategies. A lot of wetlands, we need to put a lot of grass and all these kind of afforestation and reforestation strategies for us to conserve a lot of water. Because before we know it, when we are cutting down trees, destroying the environment, we are experiencing runoffs. When water comes, there's no trapping of water, and then water is just going out like that, causing erosion in different places. And another way of putting it is the issue of agroforestry. Agroforestry, where we are planting trees, you are doing agriculture at the same time mixing with trees, planting trees that keep water us to have water all year round or all the time for us to do our agricultural activities. And the very last point that I'm going to put across for us to strengthen this change, accept this change, is the idea of build back better in terms of infrastructure development. Build back better. Build back better. where when you're dealing with designs, then you have to make sure that all these designs you're dealing with, you're working on, they have to be water trapping structures where you can put a tank. Maybe you're constructing a house, you put a tank. Where you're constructing maybe a school, a hospital, you put proper drainage systems that trap water so that we shouldn't be losing a lot of water through runoff and seepage activities that happen because of this climate change. Why? Because climate change has brought in a lot of problems. There's a lot of things happening, health issues. We can go on and talk about all these things, but for us to accept that we need to do both in the agricultural sector and in the infrastructure sector, including good policies in governments. Thank you so much.
Richard, you brought out very specific issues, and also these issues are in a big list. Uh, we need to have one more session to discuss these things in detail. But one thing, my hearty congratulations to you for pointing out in accelerating removal of corruption. Corruption is the main cause for the downfall or the deterioration of all the third world countries.
That's right.
I see that is most important. We are talking on, improve this, accelerate this, the behavioral changes within the government system and the political system is seeding a sense of service in their mind.
That's right.
You see, the officers who come into the power, the politicians come into the power, they only want to stay in the power, make money. So
That's it.
unless and until, this is a very important issue which you highlighted today, and we'll continue this discussion. And I would like to invite uh, Mr. Satya and also Dr. Sanjay Asthana. Sanjay Asthana is the senior most faculty
So,
MTSU University, USA, and he authored several books and articles on water and human connectivity. Presently, he's trying to bring out a publication on climate change and water in India. I had the great opportunity of meeting him just last summer. Sanjay Asthana. Sanjay Asthana.
Yes, yeah.
Uh, briefly, I introduced Mr. Satya. Do you have any queries or questions to Richard now? Or shall we put it for the open house?
If you're asking me, I would want to wait for a little bit to get a good grasp of what of other ideas, and
Okay.
then
We will place it open debate in the open house system. Okay? Okay, Richard? So I'm just requesting Mr. Satya. He did his MArch from IIT Kharagpur planning. He did his thesis, master thesis on Hyderabad flooding, urban flooding. You are also, working on it. And in fact, I also invited Syed Ali Khan, who also, working on Hyderabad flooding. He joined and just left. I hope he will join again. So, Mr. Satya, you could
sir,
briefly, consolidate and, uh, your presentation so that we will have hopefully have a healthy debate between you and the senior most man, Dr. Astana. Please, Satya. You can briefly
Yes, sir.
tell about Hyderabad flooding, your experiences, and then Dr. Sanjay will respond to all other issues. Mr.
Okay,
Satya,
sir.
please.
Yeah.
You have 10
Hello, sir.
minutes.
Hello, sir. Nice meeting you. So, yeah. Primarily, what are the things that I have observed during my thesis are the main the lack of coordination between the different bodies, even though they are working on the same thing, same stormwater, but there are multiple organizations which there is a complete non-coordination between them, like the irrigation department who take care of our water bodies and stormwater network, and if it comes to the roads and networks, where many roads are being laid within the FTLs of these lakes, which is resulting in the encroachments. In other way, it is reducing the holding capacities of these lakes, and also town planning department where they are giving permit for construction of new constructions within these FTLs, and also with new developments in terms of the city beautification and tourism development. Also, there are many constructions happening within these FTLs. Uh, uh, and the other thing that I wanted to discuss, these are the what I think the major lack of coordination is resulting more and more encroachments and less importance to the disaster resilience infrastructure. Even when it comes to the master planning also, uh, uh, as generally we think of drinking water network, sewerage network, and stormwater drainage network, but stormwater drainage network is limited, very little study is being done on that, because when it comes to the stormwater, it behaves as per the watersheds and the basins, but our ULBs are limited to their boundaries, so we can't just deal it in the same way like a drinking water and sewage, like a stormwater. It has to be dealt in a completely different way, in terms of whether we have to consider the watersheds or subbasins or whatever the water follows. So also in the other things, like even while we the rapid knowledge about rapid discussion being happen going on the climate change, uh, this network of lakes and stormwaters is not given much importance in order to mitigate and also to adapt these climate change. This can be a better structure, a better existing structure that can use for disaster resilience, but it is not being considered in such a way. Mostly this is being seen, it is combined with the sewerage network, which is increasing the pollution, affecting the environment and the flora and fauna, and even affect polluting the groundwater also. And also to the other things, like I want to mainly concentrate, means I made few under requirements to mitigate these things. Like at first we need a complete monitoring system, whether we have to study the rainfall. uh, it would be much better if we using the spatial technologies, so we can forecast the rainfall to 95% of confidentiality, then it would be much better. And also we need a different at different centers to real-time monitoring of the rainfall that is occurring. And also we have to keep the flow meters in the different stormwater channels, so that we can understand at the what rate we are receiving the runoff volume, so that we can calculate the time that we have and the immediate actions that we have. Because even in this 21st century is also, we are still facing casualties, that is, at least we are unable to reduce these casualties. We has financial losses and property losses that we can't that we can reduce, but we can't completely make it zero because of natural disasters. But at least we can strive hard, work hard to reduce to make it casualties to zero. And another thing is, like in the master plans, there is another major lacking is we are not allotting the specific space zones for the storm sewage treatment plants and the FSTPs. What happening currently? I am working as a consultant for Swachh Sarvekshan in a Nizampet municipality. But what I usually understood is because of the lack of availability of the land, even when they know they want to construct an STPs, it is difficult to land acquisition from the different private owners because we can't construct the STP wherever we want. It must be integrated within the sewerage network. So that kind of the importance, they are separately treated like this special purpose plans or sanitation plans, but they are not playing the importance in the master plans. So that is also a lagging. And also water storage units in terms of the during a rainfall event. So like to store the stormwater when after an event, if surcharging of the stormwater network, we can let pump these stormwater from the storage units into the sewer network so that we can reduce the waterlogging in the low-lying areas. And also at least if it is very for a long duration of the event, at least we can increase the time to take the response activities so that we can reduce the casualties. uh, there are in other terms like uh, those are my major observations, briefly, that my briefings are regarding this stormwater issues and urban flooding in Hyderabad.
Thank you, Satya. It's a nice and welcome to Saib Ali Khan and Salma. Please unmute your mic and okay. Mr. Saib Ali Khan is from Hyderabad, presently in the Harvard University, and he also did some studies on Hyderabad old water networks, Hyderabad memories, what he called. So it's a great, and recently a part of his research study was published for a common man's benefit in the Times of India. He's urban designer, basically researcher, city of memories, mapping and reconstructing the Hyderabad network, which is what he is doing his research. And I request Salma to introduce herself. Please unmute your mic and also the video. Uh, Sanjay, Mr. Ali Khan, and Salma, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome, Saib Ali Khan. And Mr. Satya, he did his MArch architecture planning from IIT Kharagpur, and his master thesis is on Hyderabad flooding. He is the second youngster who I know who did on this. The first gentleman is Mr. Narendra, who is a Rajasthani. Of course, he did studies on Hyderabad flooding. He also did his studies from Hyderabad. These are the two youngsters whom I came to know, who are sharing on this. And I also introduced Dr. Sanjay Asthana to you. Dr. Sanjay Asthana, he is Mr. Ali Khan, and both are, working on Hyderabad issues, and both happen to come from Hyderabad. So it's a great news for us. And so the floor is open, sir. I request Mr. Ali Khan to speak about his, and also Salma, are you there? Okay. Uh, we had two major, presentations from Africa. One is from Mrs. Olabisi. She is the retired general manager of water resources from Ekiti state of Nigeria, and she has a very great, 34 years of experience working in water sector, handling several international projects. And I also happened to associate with her in 2017 on water supply systems, metering, and tariff issues in that state. And you will have the benefit of her PowerPoint presentation. We will share with you. The other presentation was by Mr. Richard. Richard, can we see you? Richard, he is from Malawi and is again a water engineer and has good experience working with World Bank, African Development Bank, and European investments projects in Malawi on water conservation projects. Richard, he is Mr. Saib Ali Khan from US and Dr. Sanjay Asthana from US. Dr. Sanjay Asthana has almost 20 years of teaching experience. His background is media and communications. So he works on water, media, communication, and other things. And the third presentation was Mr. Nageshwar Reddy, who is making his entry into climate and water. So this year, what we thought is we will give this platform and we invite the new water warriors to this platform. So it's a new experiment, not the experiment, but we would like to hand over our baton, relay race, baton to you people. हम लोग भाग भाग के थक गए हैं, है ना? Right, sir.
Well, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much, Dr. Rao, for inviting me to this chat, and I'm really happy to meet everyone and look forward to hearing the presentations that are going to follow mine, and hopefully there's a recording or something of what's happened before. I apologize, I'm on the West Coast, so that was very, very early for me in the evening, in the morning, sorry. But I'm really happy to join now. To just maybe give you like a little bit of a background, I'm an architect. I grew up in Hyderabad, and actually, I know Professor Asthana. One of my childhood friends from Hyderabad is his nephew,
Oh,
and when I saw his picture on the poster, I was like, "Wow, this is really a small world." And things are kind of getting strange a little bit for my life. I'm meeting so many people that I have such deep connections with that I'm not kind of realizing, but my life is kind of intersecting with these people in interesting ways. So it's very nice to actually finally meet you, Professor Astana. I've heard a lot
Yeah,
about
thank
you.
you. Saib,
Um,
pleasure always.
so yeah. So I grew up in Hyderabad. I studied architecture there. I worked there for 3 years, and then I came to the US to do my master's. But I kind of started getting interested in Hyderabad's history and especially its ecological history and its water systems. About a year before I left for my graduate program, because I was going to study urban planning and design, and I wanted to really understand the place that I'm from, that I grew up in, before I start kind of developing my research skills and start thinking about other places. And what I found in about a year of research that I was practicing in Hyderabad was there was a quite a lack of geospatial data, especially because I wanted to understand, where the watersheds are, where lakes are, where streams are, how does water move in the city, what happens when it rains, and although when I was speaking to people and experts who are working on the ground, it was very helpful, but I was not able to find enough spatial data to corroborate what I was hearing, and for me to really understand it. And that was the first time that I made an attempt to maybe bring together the spatial archives that I was finding, which were from the survey of India. There were a lot of survey maps that had, you know, hydrological information, but they had all kinds of other information as well. And so that was the first data set. And the second data set was what I was hearing from people. There were accounts of people growing up near water bodies experiencing flooding. There were accounts of recreational use, agriculture, all of that, which I was not getting from the maps that I was looking at. They didn't have that kind of detail, and they weren't as descriptive. So I tried to combine those two data sets, these spatial archives and people's oral histories and memories, to try to maybe um, create a richer archive of what water looked like in Hyderabad, and what were its uses. So that was kind of the birth of the project, and the 2 years that I spent in Cambridge. Um, Along with the studio work and the other research that I was doing, I started to think back at this project, and think back at the work that I was doing in Hyderabad, and I started thinking about how, like, which tools do I develop to you know to study this better. So I started looking into GIS mapping, and other sort of modeling techniques, and which kind of led to the City of Memories project. So what the project is essentially trying to do is, I feel like there's a lot of excellent information out there, uh, that people who've lived in Hyderabad for 3 or 4 decades have, and they've seen a city before its economic liberalization, and before sort of the explosion of real estate in the city. So they've seen it, and they have a very close and interesting relationship with water. But those people are also getting older now, and I feel like their histories and their memories need to be recorded somewhere, so it's kind of not lost forever. And along with that, to maybe develop a research methodology to work in a place that has a lack of archives. Um, and so I basically looked at GIS mapping. I created a digital elevation model of the city, and then ran simulations to understand where watersheds are, where the water streams are, how do these different lakes actually connect with each other, what are vulnerable areas in the city that are experiencing flooding. And then on a more granular scale, I needed to speak to experts like Mr. Subbarao, and others who've grown up around the city's lakes, and really understand them, to get like a really material and granular understanding of what's going on, and then to add that information as well into the same maps, so that they have better information, they're richer, and they help um, for the research in the city. So that's kind of like a brief overview of what I've been working on. I'd love to hear from the rest of you.
Yeah, one thing, see, today, the theme being, accelerating in the water sector and all. Now, we have two architects and one gentleman working on water rural, and the other gentleman, uh, Mr. Ali Khan. शर्मा जी, आप कैमरा ओपन रखिए. Okay, I would like to introduce Mr. Sharma. He was associated with ICRISAT for 40 years and is a great man on rainwater harvesting. He created a rainwater harvesting for ICRISAT, which stores 1 billion liters. And his house is designed for rainwater harvesting. He does not use municipal water for the last 25 years. You should meet him when you.
I remember Mudi Sharma because we visited his house when we came to Hyderabad. We visited ICRISAT. Yes.
Yes,
I have
Richard.
it.
Yes. Yes,
I have
Richard.
we visited his house
Yes.
in some kind of area where they are doing a lot of agriculture after ICRISAT somewhere there. And then he was explaining to us how he did all the designs to make sure that under his house there is water being restored there.
Yes.
Congratulations, Doc. I remember him.
Thank you. To my question, is it not the time that we should highlight and ask the system to integrate water resources into the urban planning? Because I was a resource person for 14 years in an urban environment center, which is a regional center under Government of India. The water resources is not the baby and concern for the urban planners in any of the authorities. They say we are only concerned with the survey numbers and giving the land to people. Okay, so that one second, I would like to introduce a very unique personality and coming from straight from the equator. Kalmira, can you hear me? Selmira.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, Mrs. Selmira is from South Ome. This island is located on the equator. So she is balancing the north and south right now. Okay. Welcome, Selmira. Okay, so this is one aspect I would like to place before the architects actually. You do not have architectural planners in the urban development authorities, hydrologists, and even the social scientists you don't find in our country. So I
Yeah, I think
always, whenever I meet the Chicago Indian group, I say, you come here and give all kinds of glossy, rosy lectures. But you never give serious recommendations to the Indian government that what you have learned in the US and what can be done with the, some kind of a regulatory mechanisms which are successful in USA, may be successful in India, which that I am looking at. Okay. So Sanjay, before we go into a further debate, uh, hope you have time, Ali Khan.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would like to invite my guest, Selmira from South Ome. Selmira, unmute your mic. Selmira, unmute your mic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Selmira is from South Ome and her specialization is management. She started her career in the communications and media with the radio, and now she is the one of the board directors in the civil aviation of South Ome. Hope I am correct. Please, if I am wrong, please correct me and brief Selmera. And I invite you to express your views on water in South Ome. Selmera.
Thank you for the opportunity. Um, I will try to speak English, but I am not fluent in English. Yeah, we talk Portuguese. But here in Sao Tome, the population used to take a bath, wash their clothes and dishes in the river. And even today, a large part of the population still has this habit, this practice to use the river to their necessity. Therefore, those who had a chance to have the water do not have a notion that this resource is exhaustible. In their mind, they still think that is the river water and that it can be expanded freely with a long bath, open taps, while some activities are carried out. Uh, they don't think that water can finish. Uh, Another thing that happened here in Sao Tome is that there is no retention for storage of water from the river or springs for an optimal use of this resource. We have a rain season, but we don't retain the water. All the water in the river flows freely into the sea, and in the dry season we have many difficulties in supplying and accessing water. So as a woman, the woman being the manager of the house and is a mother, and I think we can teach the young people, the children, and in addition to managing and saving water, the woman she must already educate her children for this purpose, to use water as thinking about future. In the case of my country, West is often implicit for cultural reasons. Many people do not have people water in their home, and our government has installed some public fountain and some public laundries to facilitate the population's access to drinking water, for example. But the population misuse these goods, leaving the taps open when they do some activities. The resident of the community uh, many occasion they find the difficulty to pay for to save these infrastructure. So we have a public company that manages water and electricity. They capture, trade, and distribute the water. However, few people benefit from the drinking water 24 hours a day. There is the rationalization for these resources, which can be supplied through 3 or 4 times a week, and therefore the population needs to. The women are the biggest user of these. Use the water. For example, we have water in our country, but we use the electricity, the light from generator. We don't use water to generate electricity. And now, and it is a big difficult for Sao Tome to manage the problem of water. So thank you.
Thank you, Selmera. You say my idea is basically, I think this is the fifth, international webinar I am conducting uh, from participants from USA, Africa, and India. This time, unfortunately, the representatives from Mexico who could not get. The very purpose of this is, you see, we look at a wide, gap in the water management system, accessibility to the water across the world. A country with 5,000 years of agrarian society, a city of Hyderabad with 500 years of glorious water management engineering marvels, where the flood controlling canals were constructed 460 years back. Today, we are suffering from urban flooding. A small island on equator which is struggling to create accessibility of safe drinking water and environmentally safe sanitation. Where are we on this earth? 1992, the Earth Rio summit said, common future, common planet, common, everything common. Who is getting the benefit out of these common philosophies? Okay? Every time, whenever there is a global meeting, all 100 representatives from 174 countries go there, sign and marry, come back and do nothing in the country. It's time for us to accelerate the sharing of information. It is time that we should build peoples to people information networks. It is very important. I had the great opportunity, myself and Mr. Dr. Shiv Prasad and my mentor, late KB Tilak and all. We created a peoples to people network in South Asia. See, we have common resources, Himalayas cover, and they have their impact on every country in the South Asia. So it's time how we can build peoples to people network. As Mr. Ali Khan rightly pointed out, yes, when I started in 87 talking to elder people, I was so restless because if I miss it, I may miss that generation. I miss the generation and a knowledge of generation. So it becomes very difficult, to document those oral. I learned this oral documentation system by going through the British memoirs and my own field work in 74 and 75, working in the tribal areas. You see, it is most important that, it's time for us. Our resources have been taken over by the corporate sectors. Our springs have been taken over by the corporate sector. We are buying our own water resources. Where are we heading? The cities which are, ecological friendly, the cities which had ecological planning, like the city of Hyderabad, from the Musi origin to its confluence, has its own glory, has its own engineering marvel. It has 17 flood controlling canals down the Musi, and maybe such kind of structures we may find. And from the origin of the river, we had two flood controlling canals, Firangi Nala and Bulkapur, constructed 460 years back. I myself observed in parts of Africa, the women, with their own indigenous knowledge, they create some kind of a structure to collect roof water and store it. No engineer went there and taught them. So today what I feel is, though the global UN says accelerating, what to accelerate? I say we need to accelerate. I am just placing before all the speakers and would like to have your response on it. Integrate the water resources and water infrastructure in urban planning. You cannot isolate them. When you look at all the historical cities across the world, this was the phenomenon. And the second thing is, how do we accelerate and seed the thoughts of removal of corruption in the system? That is most important. And the third one is, how do we build peoples to people information networks? Because everything today is a patent right. Then who will speak? I myself was asking people to not to disclose their knowledge, but that is also a danger. We have to bring it out and we have to use this knowledge for a public cause. We need to come out with natural solutions, cost-effective solutions. We need to move a long way. So as rightly pointed out Silmera, I always point out that it is the women who have greater vision than the men. A typical women from rural or tribal or even from the urban area, she is more bothered about the tomorrow morning's water availability. A man, he gulps his glass of water and sleeps happily. But a woman always looks and goes back and looks into the pot whether there is water for tomorrow's cooking. They are the visionaries. So how do we bring this? So with these few words, and finally what I say is, we are not strengthening our local governments. Across the world, I am looking at. Though we talk of democracy, this and that, but we are not strengthening, and democracy has become a mockery in India, elsewhere. How do we seed the principles and practices of democracy in water management? People are not consulted. The government sits and demolishes the Firangi Nala and other water infrastructures. People are not consulted. It's a dangerous thing. So how do we accelerate the process of people's participation, like from a village to UN? That is most important for every one of us. And briefly, with your consent, Dr. Sanjay, I request my good old friend, Dr. M.M. Sharma, to speak for 5 minutes, and then the floor is yours for the open debate. Sharma ji,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sharma, please,
Yes, sir.
as an observer, we look towards you
Uh,
for a few recommendations to all these you know, new water warriors. Please, sir.
uh, thank you, sir. Namaskar. Uh, I had lost uh, your earlier talk today, and largely because of the authentication uh, failed on my system. I'm sorry, my apologies. That's one.
Yeah, no problem,
But
no problem.
but after that, I have kept my video off, so that we save bandwidth and we see better presentation. Yes, I have been a very attentive listener, and all these things which has been put by our presenters today are very relevant, whatever the continent and whatever the country, and they also apply here. And sir, that's what you and me, we talk global, act local. In water's case, that matters. Uh, and yes, someday I need to learn more from you about Mr. Satya's work, and another Rajasthani person who worked for urban flooding at Hyderabad. I'm keen to even read their thesis if that is accessible. Sanjay Saab and Sahib Ali Khan Sahib, greetings. Hmm. We will keep meeting on this system, and I'm looking forward to Sanjay Saab's presentation now. And yes, Rao Saab, I have already prepared my draft as you instructed me to make presentation on 2nd April. I have already made the draft uh, in a quite final stage, just few slides changes, and I'll be ready for that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you. We look forward for that. Okay. So, Dr. Sanjay,
Yeah. Good morning and hello everybody. Welcome. I would like to briefly before I begin talking, yes, want to thank Dr. Subbarao and Professor Pushottam Reddy and Dr. Siva Prasad Reddy to invite me here. And also I'd like to take this moment to also say hello to Saib. I have heard of Saib from my nephew Ryan for a long time. They're childhood friends, and I have sort of memories. We are all separated by 6 feet of distance, as they call, or I think it's 6 inches or something like that. Yeah, right. Uh, Before I begin with the topic, I just wanted to say a couple words about, I have researched extensively, not on environment though, meaning, I just wanted to correct this perception that, I have not researched and not published on water, but I have a background in philosophy, Western philosophy and media and culture. My early research was for UNESCO on the media education, young people in around the world. Monograph is available online, and you can take a look at it if you're interested. Then I did a project for the European Union and the Middle East. I went to the Palestinian West Bank and Haifa, inner city Haifa, to talk to inner city poor Jewish kids and also Palestinian Arabs in West Bank and Ramallah, other places, kind of ethnography. Published books on that, and also looked at broader issues. And I found that there was one thing that was central to their lives: young people in Palestine, access to water, access to good schooling and other kinds of things, which I thought was directly linked and connected with on the one hand Israeli occupation, which is again has been shifting and have been sort of debilitating for many ordinary Palestinians. So that was the research, and my forays into environment began with my U.S. Fulbright grant award that in 2020 during the pandemic here. I was just waiting for the award to begin, award U.S. Scholar Award, and I witnessed, I heard from my friends in old city of Hyderabad. I was in the U.S., my first home in India. I grew up in the old city and then moved to the new city. But friends were, witnessing a huge flooding in 2021, 2020 also. There was this issue where, and at the same time in Tennessee, where I've been teaching, my second home here in the US, There was a huge urban flooding, and a lot of people killed, and that stirred me. So I started a new program here at my university on environmental communication. It is starting fall 2023. I was in India March to September 2022 to pursue a study on environment and climate change. I met with Dr. Rao first, and then Subba Rao, and then Professor Purushottam Reddy. Both of them have been, eminent work in the domain of environment and for a number of years, and in fact, lifelong work both of them have done, and I'm really, admired their work, and I had interacted with them. Before I get to urban flooding, a couple of questions here and a couple of ideas here I would like to articulate. I come from an academic and a scholarly background, so I don't have really, the kind of recommendations that people provide here, but I would give you a sense in what academic research has been, pursuing for the last several years here. Water as a discourse is something that I would like to focus on. In 1992, at the Dublin conference, UN-sponsored conference on water and the environment, there were four principles, as we all know. First was the principle of water as a finite resource, water resource management based on a participatory model approach. Third one was women as playing a central role, and the fourth one caught many people's attention here because it said that water is an economic good, as a kind of approach to water governance and water as a commodity, not as a natural resource but as a commodity. And subsequently, as we all know, World Bank has sponsored and pursued a privatization policy in much of the global south, outside of Europe and the United States, which again led to a lot of issues. Scholars have written about it, not just me. I have not written about it. I'm going to write about Hyderabad Deccan. But people have written about the issues coming from microfinance that the World Bank gives to special help groups, and in the domain of water. And when I visited India, Hyderabad, I saw some of that thing play out. So academic research is telling us one thing, and the World Bank and others are telling us the another thing in terms of irrigation. Huge projects have been sponsored, and investments made on behalf of governments, and without people's participation, without people approving it from the people. It was huge sums of money taken by governments around the world in the global south. So this resulted in deeper problems from Bolivia to Zambia, issues of water here. So I just wanted to mention that privatization and techno fixes to large set of issues here. Now to the Fulbright Award and my work here in Hyderabad. I visited, I did ethnography in Bastis, old city, and also new city. When I say old city, Hyderabad is a very unique way in which urbanization has been, ongoing for the last 15, 20 years. We have what is called on the west of the city high-tech city, which is driven by IT industries. But there is this old city, which is again located on the south, and then you have on the south east
East.
new city, which is a city which was Abbots and other areas. So there's a kind of three zones of Hyderabad city, and the way in which water comes out as on the one hand, it's people face a huge excess water in the form of flooding, and also an acute shortage of water in terms of drinking sanitation. And today we are celebrating and marking the World Water Day, the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, right? So I just wanted to give you a brief quick overview of what I encountered during my visit fieldwork in Hyderabad. One, we see rapid urbanization, land use practices, which are again based on encroachment on water bodies, rivers, lakes, ponds, tanks, uh, led to major environmental pollution, environmental toxicity on the one hand, and the other would be people really lacking that the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which is sanitation and drinking water. So the question then is, people have written about it. The Center for Science and Environment, Sunita Narayan and Anil Agarwal have written about it. Within Hyderabad, Telangana, Dr. Rao Subbarao has been, talking about it, local knowledge, indigenous knowledge, understanding of how to really sustain and develop water resources. Professor Reddy, Purushottam Reddy, has been looking at a whole range of issues in terms of local land use practices and other kinds of things. And also, there is some media work that is being done. I think people are writing about the decrease in the lakes and how the lakes have been encroached by politicians and others. Firangi Nala is something that I was in search of in Hyderabad. I was trying to figure out, and I met with several individuals, and I sort of referred before even going to India. I referred to Leonard Munt's municipal maps, the cartography of old city of Hyderabad. He was one of the engineers who worked for the Nizam in the 1900s. Tried to figure out at least the spatial mapping of water bodies in Hyderabad, Musi, and its tributaries and others. So I see a set of issues here. When I was in the fieldwork area, this is a common knowledge. Everybody would agree with me. You have this, rich and I would say apartments that are coming up on the west side of Hyderabad with affluent, huge high-rise buildings which have catered to 24/7 water coming from certain places. And if you just go outside of that enclosures, you will find little bastis, which is again, basti is a term for in Hindi, in Urdu, for slums or shack settlements, as in other parts of the world they talk about informal settlements. People don't have water, sanitation, and they just rely on tankers and other kinds of things. Even in new city areas where I grew up in Domalguda and other areas, particularly Yusufguda, people have to wait for 3 days to just get the municipal water. So there are very deep socioeconomic inequities in the way in which water is distributed by the municipal bodies. Rich, affluent land development that is going on the west part of Hyderabad, they get water. I, even took a trek to, and I, really admire Saib's work on the City of Memories, where he's done, getting the archival memories, talking to people. I spoke to people in outside of Gachibowli. I was associated with my host institution was University of Hyderabad, where I worked and did my Fulbright. I had stayed there in Gachibowli in one of those high-rise buildings. I had to, because the U.S. State Department wanted me to stay close within 8 miles, 7 miles of the University of Hyderabad. So I had to take, I was with my family, so I had to stay in that rich neighborhood where we would get 24/7 water. I would walk out to Masjid Banda, which is near Kondapur, Nalagandla, Kondapur, which is adjacent to the Gachibowli area. And I would talk to those people, and they lacked basic necessities of water, sanitation. And this is graded hierarchies of power and and the way in which municipal water, they have to rely on bottled water, they have to rely on water from tankers. So it's a very problematic issue. Again, in conclusion, I just wanted to mention here that water is one component of my research here. I'm looking at climate change, urban heat islands, and I'm looking at other aspects of how it affects land use practices, locally unwanted land use, and other issues. But my larger goal is to critique from a scholarly background, critique World Bank's encroachments. Actually, one can call it as encroachments into the domain of water. Water is a holistic concept. You are actually disabling some of the other practices. Where people rely on. In Old City, when I visited Miralam Talab and Talab Katta, where people living in those places, they again have I think better understanding and knowledge of how to really deal with these issues. They might not have the policies and the other kinds of things, but it's a very problematic issue, and I think it goes hand in hand: environmental toxicity, environmental issues with climate change. Because once we begin to focus on climate change and lose sight of environmental issues, I think the poor and the marginalized people would suffer. Particularly, old city of Hyderabad is the place which is something that is very important. One need to be careful in terms of looking at urbanization in Hyderabad, the old city and the new city, which are the earlier parts of the city. which has to be equally understood, and we need to have both not just the spatial mapping of that, but also to have a deeper understanding in terms of doing kind of a deeper ethnography with people, understanding the participatory approach to solving some of those issues. So I just thought I will instead of giving a formal presentation, give you some of my thoughts, and I would have it's better to have an open conversation and dialogue with everybody else. So thank you for the opportunity, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Before I invite and hand over to Professor Purushottam Reddy, you see, one thing is the country witnessed an unscientific, a rapid urbanization, disturbing all the traditional water management systems in the so-called cities. And the situation of Hyderabad is not unique to Hyderabad. But today I see typical rapid urbanization in Africa. It's happening there. And I have no experience in Latin America, but Latin America looks much more worse. I'm just placing certain things before the forum and the members so that we can have continual discussions, sharing of experiences, knowledge, case studies. How do we accelerate taking the common man's voice to assembly and parliament? You see, we are only talking of it. This is very important. And how do we build the peoples to people connectivity? These two things are very important. Make people's participation, effective participation. It's not that, on the name of stakeholders, the government does tamasha of bringing the school kids and college kids. Actual stakeholders, I never saw them in the debate. So we need to look into it. And the most important and fragile thing is water is a dynamic resource. There is no permanent solution. Whenever you talk to, in my experience, talking to the bureaucrats, the principal secretaries, they say, "Oh, look, we are looking for permanent solutions." How can you give a permanent solution in a water sector? It's a dynamic resource. It demands a dynamic management system. So these are the real things to be debated at all given levels, and these are the things what I feel strongly that to be taken up seriously as an action research. If the World Bank comes, it is not giving any permanent solution. There is no permanent solution. So we need to look into these things, and I also share, some of the salient, observations which I made from the speakers today. I share a gist of it to everyone so that we may have a continual debate in the future too. Okay. Thank you. And I invite Professor Purushottam Reddy to give his, share his valuable observations.
Yeah, thank
Professor
you.
Purushottam Reddy.
Thank you so much, my friend Subbarao Garu. At the outset, I am really so happy to see my another dear friend, Professor Sanjay Asthana, after a long time, though we are in touch on telephone. But not only I'm seeing him, but I heard his speech incomplete. So my day is made for. I'm sorry I could not hear the speech of Saib Ali Khan because I had an emergency work to attend. I'm sorry. Later on, I will definitely go through. Satya also, the first part I heard, but Satya, did you complete your presentation?
Yes, after that I just gave a brief about my work.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll be in touch. And as usual, Nageswar Reddy is always full of enthusiasm, and his commitment to the cause is very well known. And Murali Sharma's enthusiasm is always there. He has always been my inspiration. Our friends from Africa, uh, they made excellent presentations. I have just a few observations after listening to all these, particularly, uh, there's very little to make a point because Professor Sanjay Asthana covered a great part of it. However, as a political scientist, my concern is that it is going to become increasingly difficult for the common man, the armed army of India, in the days to come. As it is extremely difficult right now. You know, there is so much of discrimination that, as already explained, that water is supplied to the rich areas of Hyderabad. And that is the scenario in every city. You go to Delhi, Bombay, everywhere, it is the rich and the powerful and the mighty who get their pipelines. The line itself is bigger, and the quality of water is definitely much, much better. The line and the size of the pipe itself will be bigger. So many a time I have been mentioning the PhD work done by Dr. Akhtar Ali, particularly when he mentions about the amenities mapping in Hyderabad. If you look at that map, the facilities that are spread out in terms of park or drinking water, open spaces, or every other facility which is required, garbage collection, etc., etc. You can see that they are fairly effective in areas which can be described as accessible to the politically powerful, like Banjara, Jubilee Hills, and all that, and towards the western side. Whereas in the slum areas, there is so much of discrimination that I can foresee a major social upheaval in the days to come because people can't be waiting in the queue eternally for the redressal of their basic demands. As it is, the earlier state of Andhra Pradesh had witnessed Jalasadhana movements, that is, people coming together to make a common cause. And it was possible in the districts of Nalgonda, Mahbubnagar, and the rest of Telangana because there the water is connected with livelihood. No water means no cultivation, which means right to livelihood is affected, and thereby the right to life is affected. That is why people they came together, they made a common cause, and they waged common struggles, and they were successful in getting the water to 3.5 lakh acres in Nalgonda and about 4 lakh acres in Mahbubnagar. This is all as a result of the people struggles. That is, as one associated with these struggles, I can safely say that we could make water a major issue in the rural Telangana. Of course, we helped people in Prakasham district also, and they also got a canal for 5 lakh acres. Now the question is, when people come out of their shell, the citizens, they should come out of their shells, the small little world they are living in, particularly in terms of caste and language or region. When they come out of that and they learn to make a common cause, and if their methods are constitutionally valid, that is non-violent and as per the dictates of the constitution, I don't see any reason why they cannot be successful. However, it's going to become extremely difficult. Right now, Mr. Sanjay, we are filing one case. It's already numbered regarding Shadnagar, I told you. So tomorrow it's coming up in the High Court. Now the question is, during the last 30 years, along with Subbarao Garu, myself, MC Mehta, when we were filing public interest litigations, it was always so easy, you know. Suppose we submit all the papers today, in 2 or 3 days' time, it would come onto the bench and we would get the result. That is, admitted, notice is issued, and the matter is pursued in the court of law. But now they have created a filter. That is, first all such PILs will go to public interest litigations, will go to a committee, and there would be a scrutiny. So slowly we are seeing that even the judiciary, which was once upon a time so very responsive to the demands of the public, particularly mass when it comes to justice on a mass scale. So that was that wonderful legacy of Indian judiciary. But today, I see conservative thinking on the part of the judiciary, and they are not all that eager to go to the rescue of the poor, the marginalized, the suppressed, because they are making it extremely difficult, particularly when we are talking about public interest litigation. See, what is the logic of the first, the petition going to a committee and they take their own sweet 10 days, 15 days, and finally it may or may not reach the bench. So this kind of filtering the, grievances of the public, that is not in the interest of democracy. And sometimes I get the feeling that justice is being rationed. This rationing of justice should not be there. And when people are watching, in fact, 75 years of Indian uh, constitutional functioning, uh, I think not constitutional independence, from 1950 to present date, about 72, 73 years running, we are still learning. Recently, I heard the uh, speech of the Chief Justice of Singapore. And what a great speech it was. Singapore, they have made the entire judicial system user friendly. And any major issue, they know, they know how to approach the court, and they even know, depending upon the crime, what sort of punishment will be there and or penalties will be there. So that kind of a user-friendly judicial system, India has to um, uh, transform into. Otherwise, in spite of having a fairly independent judiciary, we are not getting justice. One last point on all these issues, because Hyderabad witnessed a major struggle with regards to GO 111. In spite of a vigilant public opinion, a wonderful citizens group, in spite of going to the Supreme Court and getting orders for the protection of the two major reservoirs, Himayat Sagar and Osman Sagar, and even subsequently we got so many orders regarding GO 111. The tragedy in Telangana is that the chief secretary doesn't bother to implement, and the chief secretaries are not punished. See, the point is, if a common man violates or goes against the judgment of the court, that common man is punished under contempt of court. Why is the law different when it comes to the chief secretary or the chief minister? So, do we have administrative law? Is not India subjected to rule of law? As a political science teacher, I know that we have only rule of law. There is no separate set of laws for the administrators, but these administrators go scot-free. And this is a reflection on the judiciary itself. They give judgments and they don't bother to ensure the compliance. So this is a very sad part. Lastly, we are witnessing massive privatization. The corporates are taking control of everything. In fact, today the situation is so horrible that the corporates are dictating the agenda. Whatever the corporates wants, all the legislation that we see in parliament and in the assemblies, it is nothing but in favor of the corporates. We see the dilution of environmental laws. It is a pity, it started during UPA 2 and now it continues under NDA. Every day there is some kind of a dilution, and institutions are virtually paralyzed. ये नाम के वास्ते Human Rights Commission, नाम के वास्ते Pollution Control Board, and India is one country. I request all of you to know that it still does not have an all-powerful environment protection authority. America had it in the 60s, the period between 62 and 70, and we don't have it even today. So this tokenism, a lip sympathy, approach to the protection of environment, that is hurting India to a great extent, particularly the poorest of the poor, the marginalized. And we can see the same trend when it comes to the functioning of universities. Literally all the universities in this country are being denied their funds, their autonomy. The most important thing in a university is the autonomy. But that autonomy is, as a senior professor, I can tell you, when we scan the entire country, I don't find a single university which can boast of autonomy. Where are we going? Are we not denying the students of the present, today's students, their right to development, their right to information? And similarly, media, it has already slipped into the hands of the corporates. So in such a situation, I think, friend Sanjay Asthana from America, he will be pondering, and maybe in the next session he can come up with a prescription to restore democracy. Thank you, boss. Thank you.
Audio, sir.
Nice to
Subbarao ji.
see
Audio.
Majid.
Subbarao garu.
Majid Bhai is here.
Ajit Bhai, Abdul Bhai. Welcome, Majid Bhai.
Majid Bhai, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
Unmute.
As Professor Purushottam Reddy pointed out for the next session, I am placing a topic for the next session. And I request the attention of Sanjay and Ali Khan also. You see, please refer to the New York City's water supply system, where its catchment is a public property of the Greens, a huge catchment area which was acquired during 1985 to 87 as a conservation block. And New York water supply is also through a lake. Similarly, we have the lake water supply system for San Francisco, a catchment area with the Greens to a beneficiary city. Particularly to Mr. Ali Khan, when you are talking of the memories, His Highness, the 7th Nizam, created 40,000 hectares of land as a green block in catchments of twin reservoirs. Maybe hectares or acres, I don't remember. but he came out with catchment conservation rules. Okay? What do's and don'ts in the catchment areas of twin reservoirs, which today is the national policy for Mexico. I can share the document to you. Why the intellectuals who come from Chicago, all NRS, and talk about water management for Hyderabad and Orissa, they don't discuss about this? It's time for us to bring out these issues. At least bring it on to such platforms. You see, probably the Europeans and Americans might have taken this from India, the principles and practices of catchment conservation, and fine-tuned it to contemporary management practices. We are thinking that these practices are redundant and we do not know what to do for the contemporary. So, peoples to people knowledge sharing, and I am proposing this for the next debate, and soon I will prepare a background paper and circulate to you people on New York water system and also Mexico's water policy and twin reservoir catchment policy by then rulers. Okay, let us look into it. It's my pleasure now to introduce मजीद भाई, आपने अनम्यूट कर लेना माइक. मजीद भाई, माइक अनम्यूट कर लो.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce my friend Mr. Majid. He is also from Hyderabad. He was working for NAC here, and recently he moved to US, and now he is in a teaching profession, and very active lake warrior in Hyderabad. You can have some 5 minutes to introduce
thank you
yourself,
for
and
your
then before we
introduction.
go for the closing session.
Thank you for your kind
अब जरा
introduction.
पीछे चले जाओ आपका बिल्कुल. This is good.
Thank you for your kind introduction. I am in Atlanta, in Georgia presently. So I was working with Professor Pushottam Reddy and Subbarao Garu. So I'm happy to see that all the environmentalists are on one page in this platform. And I'm very happy to see that many people from US also till now, in spite of leaving the country, they are worried about the environment in India. So, and again, I thank all the members and particularly DRTSPR channels who are doing these programs to create awareness among the society so that we can have a better future for our children. So once again, I am very thankful to them for giving me an opportunity to speak. Because of time constraints, I was not able to join on time, and now also I am in my class teaching here. So, but our commitment to the environment is, I think, we have to continue with this one so that we can have a better future. Thank you for giving the opportunity to talk to me.
Thank you. We will try to make it on a Sunday for our next session. So now, thank you so much for accepting my invitation and joining and sharing your experiences. And I also thank our 3 guests from Africa uh, who had to leave, because of pre-commitments and all, and wonderful. And we could. And this year, I'm glad that I could motivate a country representative from Equator. So to bring a balance between the north and south poles. And now I welcome Dr. Shiv Prasad Reddy to come out with closing remarks and his opinions on this. Thank you so much.
So it is another privilege when my great gurus are there. In their company, I keep learning, and I'm very fortunate to host such bright minds across the globe, connecting them. And there was some technical hitch because the ongoing aspects in Telangana, it is disturbing. But this I'm going to upload, however late it is, and I'll share the link also. This knowledge, this treasure on Telugu New Year Day Ugadi. The Ugadi has started with a blast, making people to understand the importance of the nature, the coexistence with the natural resource, such wonderful natural resource called water. So which is there, which is part of our body, and how good it is when it flows in our environs. We have seen, and how destructive it will be when you try to encroach that, which has Hyderabad has witnessed. And thanks to my Guruji, Professor Purushottam Reddy garu and B.V. Subbarao garu, through this channel, we had done 8.5 hours marathon. Hats off to those gentlemen. At that age, when people were dying in COVID 19 2020, I take it as a pleasure to host, and we made so many people to speak. People were dying, people were getting washed away. KCR and KTR, what IT enabled services they have done to Hyderabad, we don't know. Baby Sumedha, till today, no inquiry. Children washed away. An IT professional in Gachibowli, financial district, got washed away. So that is how dangerous water it will be, because water and elephant will never forget their way. If you try to obstruct them instead of having a symbiosis, a coexistential life, it can be very, very, very dangerous. It has proved in number of times, and that is a one biggest example. And how to conserve and preserve this, so that not only we, the next generation, our kith and kin, can enjoy such a vital natural resource, without which the life becomes very difficult. And the prophecies, there is a prophecy going on, the third world war will be fought on waters, as we are witnessing now in Ukraine. The heat which is generated out of those nuclear arsenals and all, maybe it will engulf the entire world. So thank you, gentlemen, and I'm going to reload this and make it very convenient. I'll share the link and for everyone, because if they get confused, DRTSPR channel, Citizen DRTSPR channel, and Environment People DRTSPR channels. These three channels, as first I gave a promise to my guru, Professor Purushottam Reddy or B.V. Subbarao. They clearly said this channel should first speak on the environment, and under that we got food as well as also agriculture and legal education. You make it a part so that people get enlightened, and then you add health and education. And I am happy that I've not deviated from that approach. Come whatever may, whether people fund or not, this show will go on eternally on these channels, because such prejudice, such minds without any prejudice, sharing their lifetime experiences in the form of information, these channels have become rich, and it will be a great source of knowledge for the present and the future. And what a way to say on this New Year day that knowledge is eternal, and yet DRTSPR channels have got such wonderful knowledge of whatever you said, data bank or knowledge. Yes, sir. Subarover, please, you wind it up.
Yeah, Dr. Asthana, you are asking for something, please. You raised your hand, Asthana.
Unmute, unmute.
Unmute, sir.
No, no, I didn't raise my hand. I was just clapping when you guys were, talking about some of the implications and, if you're moving forward. So I really appreciate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And we are looking forward to the youngsters, uh, you know, come forward, take the baton, and, set a motion for the debate across the state, across the country, across the nations. It's your time now. We are here to support you. So we wholeheartedly welcome the youngsters to take the baton and take the movement forward. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
It was a
Upload and
great
share
to
the
meet
link
you
so
all.
that it can be widely circulated, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.